All right. Am I on? Oh, negative 24. Crank this up here. All right. Now I'm on. Perfect. Again, call this meeting to order. Kim, please go ahead with the review of the ward redistricting process.
Evening, Mayor and Council. We thought we'd kind of recap shortly what redistricting is, the steps that the Council has already taken, and some future steps for you guys to consider this evening. So just real quick, what is redistricting? Every 10 years, the U.S. Constitution requires a census, and it requires a redistricting as a result of those census numbers. And what that process is called redistricting. And really the biggest reason why the U.S. Constitution mandates that for municipalities is to make sure that there is a fair and equitable representation from people within a specific space. So it's to make sure that people kind of move around. New development happens over years, and it's to make sure that a certain area of town isn't overrepresented and other areas are underrepresented. So there are some redistricting requirements to be compact, contiguous, and to avoid the legislative evil known as gerrymandering. So just being mindful of what the shapes look like when you were drawing the districts. I kind of went over last time on cracking and packing. Those were two areas that were further legislation was passed to make sure that as people were drawing boundaries, to make sure that that phenomenon was taken into consideration and laws are written against using those particular practices. So above all, when municipalities redistrict, new boundaries must be as equal as possible in population. And kind of the rule of thumb, and this came down through the courts, is not to exceed 10% of deviation between the districts. So in North Kansas City, our ideal legislative district population is about 1,117 people, and that's just our total population divided by 4 wards. So a little bit of historical perspective, the wards have changed year after year, so the shapes have moved as the population in North Kansas City has moved around and development kind of changes the fabric of our town. And right now, because our new population, people have moved, the population has shifted amongst the wards, we no longer meet the 10% deviation required by the U.S. Constitution. And therefore, the boundaries must be redrawn. So kind of something to consider is that the redistricting process is dynamic and continuous. It's kind of like an ongoing conversation where multiple maps are developed, input is sought, and the maps are manipulated and moved based on those comments as much as possible, keeping in mind that sometimes the math is the math, that we can't, I kind of likened it last time that in the U.S., the map that was given to us, going to flip back here, this particular area in here, I'm not sure if that's showing, think of it as the census gives us pieces to a puzzle. Those puzzle pieces has numbers on them. You can arrange them as you like, but you cannot cut or change the shape of those puzzle pieces. And again, they must be within 10% deviation of one another, and they must be balanced. Also contiguous, and just to kind of avoid gerrymandering tactics. So the council must adopt by ordinance the new ward maps before the election is open for city council members, and that is on Tuesday, December 7th. So, and again, that is a result of some of the Missouri legislation that happened over the summer. It did compress our when those offices are open and how long those offices are open for. So kind of just to recap a few of the actions that the City Council has already taken. The City Council hosted a work session on Tuesday, October 19th. In advance of that work session, we had published several maps just to kind of get the conversation started. Councilmember Graves and Smith also submitted some maps into that particular agenda packet. Just to kind of review what those maps are, and several of those maps are on the board outside, as well as they were on the city's website and social media. just so, again, we were able to start getting some public input on possibilities. During that Tuesday, October 19th work session, the City Council directed staff and we modified maps C, E, and F based on feedback and conversation from the City Council. You guys had asked for us to put those maps back out again and to start collecting public input. So we had that on our city social media channels. We had that on an online survey, as well as we had those boards that are kind of out there on display. And we collected physical paper copies. We have distributed at the dais all of the paper copies and online surveys that we at the city level had received. That way you guys can review them in addition to some of the public comments that people in the audience may or may not want to share. Again, we wanted to make sure not everybody's comfortable coming to the City Council and maybe talking through a mic. We want to make sure that we are able to gather their information and their input, hence the online platform and the paper copies. These are just kind of a visualization of what those maps look like after the City Council had made the modifications that they directed staff to do. And that brings us pretty much to today's special meeting.
Thank you. So hopefully a little bit of point of that was to make sure we had a little bit of time to also review the cards. Do we have all the cards now? Is everything with us? Or we have additional?
Yeah.
Oh, now we have more. Some speed readers up here, hopefully. Just one. There we go. Thank you. Yes, certainly wanted everyone to have the opportunity to provide feedback, via the box all the way up to the last minute. So we collected all the way up till 6. And so what we're going to do now is if City Council members have any questions of staff about the process, we can ask those now. Then we'll open it up to public comments. After the public comments, then we'll continue with our City Council discussion. And that'll be where we end up, hopefully with a map. So are there any council member comments or questions? Is there a hand there? Okay, whichever one. Councilmember Toll.
Given the response from Ward 2 and my own opinion about having the most concise map, I would like the original map C to be placed back in the group of maps to consider.
Second that if need be.
I don't think
I
there's really a
wasn't,
second.
yeah, I didn't think we needed one.
Okay, I think that's just good for information, so when we go into the council member discussion, we know that that map is, could be considered, I guess, would be how you'd word that. Original. Yeah, do we?
Can you pull up
My
original
link's
C?
not working here.
Give me just a minute, it's loading. I have all of the maps that were presented at the last work session, as well as all the new maps
Yeah, mine's
on
slow,
this computer. Of
My
course,
Wi-Fi is going a little slow too, so.
It's
Perfect night
thinking.
for that. So what this is, okay, what we'll refer to as original map C during, or is it not? All right, I guess stew on that for a second here, and then I guess we'll open to Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, so I'll stew on that with a little bit of deja vu because we've literally already had this conversation. And this map is the one that throws myself and Saper out of our ward. So we reconfigured it the last meeting, and now here we are like having the same conversation all over again. I was actually going to propose, after reading the comments from the public on the 3 maps that we narrowed down the last meeting, that I guess I don't even know why we had the last meeting, because now we're talking about the same thing again. The public likes maps C and E. It's about 50-50 split, and they don't seem to like map F. So I was going to suggest that we throw out map F and just focus on the revised maps C and E, which is what the feedback that we're getting from the comment cards and online feedback say. And I have no idea why we're back to square one on this.
All right, Councilmember Toll.
It's not everybody in the public, because you're not taking some of the comments into account. So even on the second card that was just filled out, we have 5 comments that hand wrote in original map C. The original survey that was put out there had 44 people that took it, 50% of which went for original map C. That would be 22 people. And the people in my ward that have emailed me directly to make sure that they got their comments. So you can't speak for all of the responding people. You're leaving out at least 22 plus the 5 that hand wrote it in when it wasn't up there. The issue I have with the maps that you're discussing is not where people live. It's the fact that you're taking where people live into account, which is the exact opposite of what our job is here to do.
All right, we'll do one more round here, and then we'll go back into this, and then we'll have this discussion, but we'll let the public
Again,
come
Mayor,
in. Go ahead.
chime in on this.
Yeah.
You live in this ward. Does it make any sense to you to split Erie, Fayette, and Gentry apart from each other? The whole point of this,
I mean, something's going to have to be split here.
yeah, it's
So
called
in
the
the end-
avenues, or the one ward that cannot stay together. Our North Kansas City has 4 distinct neighborhoods. Northgate Village, where you and I live, and you know it well. Gentry, Erie, and Fayette are one neighborhood. It makes no sense to cut it in half, and it's unnecessary.
But all of these maps, I mean, like on modified map C, has the duplexes
doesn't.
split out from map 1.
That is duplexes. That's
What do you mean by that?
duplexes.
That is duplexes. That's
The
not part of the
modified
neighborhood.
map C,
Is that not a neighborhood?
if you have to add streets.
But I
west-
guess my question was, is that a neighborhood?
Here's my point.
Okay.
If you have to add streets west of Howell into Ward 3, it makes more sense to add duplexes, which are their own pocket. I'm talking 26th, 7th, 8th Avenue. Instead of, you don't have to take Gentry and Fayette out of Ward 1. You can move up. And there's even people here that live in these areas that I'm talking about that agree with me. Let the public speak and you'll hear them.
Honestly, my preferred map would be the current map we have. That actually works out pretty naturally well. But unfortunately, the way the lines are and the way the numbers are, we just can't get to the way it was. That's what I would like to have, because that is better than anything I'm looking at now, is what we currently have. We just can't do that. But if there's, okay, Councilmember Roberts.
So I'm going to have to agree with Councilwoman Graves on here. The original C, we had that work session. We modified the map at that meeting with the public, with us all having feedback. Now the new map C has the most votes by far in this. So we took the first feedback, which was C resounding. We modified it, and now they really like the new C. So bringing back the original non-modified seems counterproductive and makes that first meeting by and large pointless. So while I do agree we should get rid of F because nobody seems to like that, bringing back another one that was already modified and voted upon by the public yet again seems kind of pointless.
All right, so we have all the comment cards collected. Let's open to public comments unless there's questions on the process. Further questions on the process in the presentation there? None. Okay. Oh, I couldn't tell if that was a,
I mean,
there we go.
I got feedback from my ward where they,
oh,
this is, okay. I did get feedback from my ward, from certain members that I would throw in here, some, 2 who chose original C. There are some that toss up in the air C or E, another original C, and 1 E. But I mean, there's still a resounding C, and a lot of them were looking at the originals, even though I tried to email these maps out and also took pictures and sent those. But I think it's one of those things. It's not that the first meeting was completely pointless. I think the first meeting we did focus heavily on where everybody lived. And that's where it got tricky. It was just kind of like, but I live there, and nobody wanted to hurt feelings and move people out of wards. And yeah, I think it's just something to consider, to just.
Can you read that list again? I'm keeping a tally of where we're at.
I guess I would say that was 3 of the original C. And I've got one, I'm trying to get her to commit. She said C or E,
We'll just make them both.
and then 2E, and then 1 modified C.
I mean, so we can do all the tallies we want, but we're still going to be 4,367 people short of having everyone's voice.
Right.
So let's go to public comments here. 3 minutes on public comments, please. State your name, address, please.
Richard Sheets, 1002 East 24th Avenue. Well, I think that I had some different comments, but now in light of what's going on, I wanted to speak my mind about Map C. We got rid of the original Map C and moved forward with the modified. And I think it was because it moved 2 of our council members out of their ward. These are people that were elected to represent these constituents in their own ward, and now we're just kicking them out. And it does look like gerrymandering. And I understand Councilwoman's Toll. I understand what you're saying, that considering their address is gerrymandering on that side as well. I see both sides of that argument. But I don't think that we need to be even considering the original Map C, since we had already gone through the process to get rid of it and propose the modified. So whoever voted for the original Map C, it's like right in on a presidential ballot. Doesn't really matter. And now it looks like a bait and switch. And that's really frustrating on our end. I think, number 1, we should be keeping our representatives in their respective wards. 2, keeping the neighborhoods together as best as possible. I'm from Ward 3. I would love to keep the avenues together. I agree with you, Mayor DeLong. I think the map that we have now works, but obviously we can't do that. I understand that there's going to be some division in Ward 3, and that's fine. And also, I would like to propose that we redistrict sooner than 10 years after the couple apartment complexes that we have going up get finished. That way, we're not overrepresented in one ward or another. But I am super frustrated that we would even propose bringing back original Map C, and yeah, it's just frustrating. Anyways, that's my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, one thing. I do appreciate reaching out to the public and putting it online and making it available and doing the surveys and trying to get as much feedback as possible. That was a really good gesture from the city. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Go ahead.
Original Map C, Mr. Saper, that doesn't take you out of that ward, does it?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think it does. Just as a point of clarification.
That line's on Fayette, right
Yeah,
there.
that line's on
If this
Fayette.
is correct, yeah. Okay, let's continue on public comments here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to that, I'd like to re-emphasize what.
Yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but
It
it's being
shouldn't
a point.
matter.
It shouldn't, but it's being made a
We'll,
point.
we'll have,
Oh,
we will have
okay.
discussion after we allow the public to finish up the comments here. Here we go. Welcome. Name and address, please.
Thank you. George Schluter, 800 East 23rd Avenue. I don't like Map C at all. It breaks up 2 distinct neighborhoods, the avenues and what you all call the traditional neighborhood. Modified C does a good job on it. So does revised or modified E. I think those are the 2 maps you should concentrate on. I know all of you have got a tough job to do, and I admire you for tackling it. I know you got to do it. But I think that you need to stop and think, when someone comments from one ward unrelated to the other wards, how much weight that should carry. I don't believe it should carry very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, public comment, please.
Aaron Hansen, 500 East 26th Avenue. The new C should stay. That's what we voted on. That's what they voted online. Actually, I don't even like C. I don't like a hook around my neighborhood. I'm in one ward, go to another ward, go to another ward. I like E, so thank you. Nice
Thank
bait and
you.
switch, though.
Thank you. Next, public comment, please. Seeing no further public comments, then we will go back into the Council discussion. Now we can finish up what we were doing there on that. Do we have, okay, Councilmember State, did I cut you off there or were you done? I'm sorry. Okay, you have made your point. Councilmember Toll,
Okay.
please, go ahead. And the objective, what we want to get this, really the goal here is just to get down to one map.
Yeah.
So this is, we need one that we can propose at that next meeting to finalize the process.
'Cause ultimately, we're one big city.
I'd
But
already
the-
called on her unless you had
Small
a
city.
clarification real quick. Okay, sorry, Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to say that when we give multiple options for people to respond, like we have, and we know originally 44 people filled out that original survey, 50%, 22 of which went for map C, and then we change that based on a small number of people that come in person, I think discounting people that filled out the surveys or the postcards is disingenuous. If their vote doesn't count, then we shouldn't allow it to be put out for collection. If you vote on paper versus in person, those should be equally weighted.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, I was actually just trying to get this thing wrapped up and throw out map F and move forward with revised C, revised E. Please, will someone agree with me and move this forward, or we're going to be here forever?
Councilmember Roberts.
In regards to the original C, I don't think we're discounting anything. All those maps had the same notation of draft on them, which means a work in progress. The last session, we made the work in progress, and now it's still the most popular map in modified C, whether those original 40 people wanted to revote or not. I still think that, by and large, all the tallies I have, new map C is the one that's favored. Sure, people can bring back something, but that option wasn't on the table. We didn't have it printed. It's not out here. I don't know why we have to keep talking about it. The new C has roots from the original C, which was the popularity, and we modified it. We're here. I vote that I'm motioning, I guess, that we go forward with modified C and just be done with this.
There is a motion to go forward with modified C. Unless this passes, there's going to continue to be conversation, I think, on map C. Can we make sure we just blow that up on the screen here for the moment? There's a motion on the floor for, I guess, the motion to propose modified map C go to full council meeting. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Further council member discussion. Clevenger and then Smith. He hasn't got in yet.
Okay, so this is a motion just on the modified C, not considering E.
The motion, as
This was
I
just
understood it,
received.
would pass modified C onto the city council meeting and effectively end the
Well,
rest of the
let me
meeting.
give if we're at council member discussion. For me, C, modified C, definitely as far as original C goes, we've moved on from there. So I think we skipped that. As far as modified C, the only thing is this top little thing that kind of breaks up the contiguous neighborhood there with 29th, 30th, 31st. I see that as an issue for, some people maybe in that district. I know in the avenues, obviously, we're going to lose some. We're going to go over into the duplexes, it looks like, on either C or E. But for my preference, I would like to discuss both, but my preference is E.
All right, Councilmember Smith.
Okay, so I took a tally as I read through all these comment cards and as I've taken responses from neighbors and from folks who responded to email. I've got a count of original map C got 8 votes, and this is with people not even thinking it's necessarily on the table. They specifically reached out and requested original map C. Modified map C got 7, and E had 9. So
For my count, C has 11 in here.
yeah, I've got total C between original and modified has 15 by my count.
Modified has 11. And then original had 6.
Okay, I've got it 8 to 7, including the ones Amy just mentioned. Okay? I can go back and recount as well. So the thing about the meeting we had, as Lisa mentioned, it was very based on where people lived, and that's really not what this is about. And if we look at map C right here, this modified version, there is a line that is very out of place on this map. It reaches up and curls around and just scoops in a little bit of between 28th and 29th. By all means, that's not how this works. We're supposed to have clean lines and compact districts, regardless of where people live, regardless of neighborhood character. This is a federal mandate. And if we start messing around with this, we can run into legal problems. And so I understand the concern and wanting to keep neighborhoods compact and keep neighborhoods together, but every map dices a neighborhood in some way or another. The avenues get cut in half in most of these. Northgate Village loses the south side of 29th, and traditional North Kansas City gets chopped up in different ways per different maps. So it's not about keeping things together. In every map, there's something getting lost. But I know that we need to go with the most compact map, the most compact districts. Otherwise, we're going to run into some troubles. And Modified C, which was modified on the fly, just kind of throwing things around during a meeting, has a really odd-looking hook at the top that's not a good thing. So I'm a big fan of Original C. Most of the votes that I've heard from people specifically come in on Original Map C. And, I mean, the motion on the table doesn't allow that, so I'm not sure how to go about putting that one on the table.
Would have to clear the vote on this one first. Can you put it on slide 8, I think? Perfect. There you go. I was just trying to visualize that as they were talking there. Okay. Is there further council member discussions? There is a motion on the floor.
And a second on a second.
There, yeah, and there was a second. Yeah, there's first and second. I'm sorry.
Did you want modified C or original C?
His motion was for modified C.
Modified C. Okay, then that
Okay.
is this one.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wanted to look at that other one, but yeah, the motion was for modified C, which is up there now. Okay, so the motion, and this would pass that on to the final council meeting, and like I said, effectively end tonight's meeting. So all those in favor of modified C, please say yes.
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 Opposed,
Miss-
no.
No.
Mayor
Roll call,
DeLong,
please.
I believe, yeah, we have to take the roll call on that.
I could have just declared. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
And just to clarify, this is to adopt Modify C,
That's correct.
Modified C. Like, nothing else, just Modified C, go forward. I'll say yes, because enough people voted.
Oh, Jesus. Further council member discussion.
Can we take a vote on E to see what people are like on E?
Motion
We've
on the
already
floor.
got this motion on the floor.
I wasn't ready.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I just kind of want to clarify why I am in favor of this. Modified C essentially is the original C with a few adjustments so that the current councilmen would not be shifted out of their wards, which to me is not our priority, but there are people who believe that the people who were elected into their ward positions are there to represent the people of that ward, and so they want them to stay in those wards. So I do understand where those people are coming from, and I do think we should acknowledge that. And so that's why I think Modified C really does, speak for what I would consider to be the majority of the minority, because we do know that the response of the people was underrepresented compared to the number of people in town. So that's why I think Modified C makes most sense.
Councilmember Graves, go ahead.
I would say that the people in my ward actually prefer map E, the revised map E. However, I can go with map C, revised map C, and I voted yes on it because if you are, well, first of all, it has the most tallying up the responses from the new batch where people responded from revised C, E, and F. C seems to have the most votes to me, even though the most of those voters were actually in Ward 2. 50% of the people that replied were all in Ward 2. But if you are going to take a chunk of what is now Ward 1 and put it into Ward 3, as the revised map C does, aside from the fact that, this doesn't affect my residents, take that out of the equation. Let's just think about natural boundaries. And if you live in River Forest, you might not be aware of this, to be honest with you, but this green chunk west of Howell that gets added into Ward 3, if you're on the north side of the football stadium, those houses there are duplexes, and then the next street north, 27th, are duplexes, and then you go up another street in 28th are duplexes. And so the character of Councilmember Saper and I's neighborhood, there are different, if you're walking down the street, there are natural boundaries to our neighborhood. And Gentry, Erie, and Fayette go together. And then once you get to Swift, you have like multifamily housing. And then once you get to 26th Avenue, the south part of 26th Avenue on this revised C map are single family. And then I think aside from Aaron's house, the majority of 26th Avenue where it turns green, you literally transition from single family houses to duplexes. So I know you're saying like, oh, it looks weird, blah, 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 but that is actually a natural boundary right there. If you actually are walking down the street, you can tell that one neighborhood stops and another begins right there. It transitions.
Go ahead. I never should open this up again, but now that I have, it's open. Councilmember Tull.
A lot of people that wrote in their comments, and I think over here, would like to do redistricting in less than 10 years, which we can't do. But if we look ahead to 10 years, we know that we have 2 large apartment complexes that are going to be built on the west side of Swift. We know that we have another apartment complex that's going to be built at 1 North. When that happens, in 10 years, the map is going to be shaken up again. And if I'm still here in this seat, or if I'm not in this seat, I would not want the address of anybody who's sitting up here to impact the map, because that's not what we're here to do. So again, if we're looking at where people live, that's not our job. Our job is to pick the most concise map, the most compact map, knowing that in 10 years, it will look really different. And that's not a bad thing, guys. We're all one city together. We're going to be fine after this redistricting is done. We should not take where people live into consideration.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Just one question and then a comment for Councilmember Graves. When you were talking about the natural boundary there at 26th through 28th, is that where you were saying from the little?
Correct.
And then further up there where that other arm is for Ward, the purple ward, which is?
So that would be the last southern block of houses in Northgate Village that are like those single-family patio homes. Okay. And then you'd also pick up like the north side of 28th Avenue, which are duplexes. Okay. So that is like a weird little transition period, but when you're doing these maps with the way the numbers fall, like.
It's a contiguous neighborhood there, kind of like where you got the barrier.
Council Barzee,
can I
question.
Say one.
What happens if I abstain?
Well, I was going to, Mr. Mayor, can I finish? Can I finish?
What if I want to continue council member discussion? I let this get out of order here.
No,
1 second.
Can I finish my comment? I wanted to see about changing my vote.
It sounds like there's a lot more discussion here, and we are dead split.
Well, I was going to see, to move this
One
along.
second.
Usually, but I
No,
want
he
to
doesn't.
make sure.
I would like
He's
to
got the
change
book
my
off the
vote
shelf here.
to modified C.
Oh, wait. Well, okay, now we'll have a second question.
To move this along, let's see the very little.
It does sound like there's a lot of remaining discussion.
I'd move
here.
it to modified C. I remove my note.
1 second. Let's get an answer here, and then we'll. I did go out of order by reopening. That was my own fault. Well, while he looks, go ahead.
Yeah, while he looks, I was just going to say, if you guys are worried about the aesthetics of the map, if the modified map E turns that arm that you're worried about on 29th Avenue upward, It makes it more north-south. So you still have that T shape of the green area, which is Ward 3, but that little, I guess, crooked finger-looking thing, you flip it north. So that would keep Northgate Village, the single-family portion thereof, as one unit. And this is actually the map that the people in my ward prefer.
I think the statute's pretty clear, Mayor, on this, in a third-class city. You shall not vote, as we know, except in case of a tie in said council. When he shall cast the deciding vote, shall cast the deciding vote,
Oh,
but
okay. You're done.
But provided, however, that he shall have no such power to vote in cases when he is an interested party.
Well, that's not me in any case
Which
here, really.
is- I don't
Which is
believe-
why one of the council members,
I mean,
I'm at large,
everybody in
so
here is an interested party in this,
there's
so.
very little impact to my seat here.
Can a
That's
council
why
member change their vote?
I was hoping I wouldn't. Okay, now Councilmember Clevenger has a question.
Yeah, as far as, like,
Procedure.
I voted as far as procedure here, based on the information that I've got, I like E the best, but I could go with C as well. Can I change my vote from no to yes on the modified C?
This is insanity. Look,
There you go.
so we're starting from scratch.
We're starting
We
from
can start, yes, we can
the
do that.
motion to go forward with modified C. Okay? Councilmember Palumbi.
Yes.
Councilmember Graves.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
No.
Councilmember Toll.
No.
Councilmember Smith.
No.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
And Councilmember Clark.
Can I first ask Tony specifically your reasoning for no? Because I know this was like in effect and not effect for you. This was,
Neither affect me. It doesn't matter because they're all up for grabs in each election. It shouldn't matter where a person sitting on the council now lives. That's irrelevant. The reason I like E is it keeps the Northgate Village intact. And it doesn't split off a row of houses. Other than that, they're relatively the same, modified C and E. My preference, again, is for E because of that. It keeps Northgate intact.
I don't like this
Which is
job.
why I said no.
I'm going to say no.
Hey, Mayor,
Who's got a quarter?
Hey, Mayor, we have
Who's
a
got a
tie.
quarter? Who's got a quarter? No, I'm just kidding. In the end, we're going to be redistricting probably again in 4 years anyways. Maybe 6, maybe 5. I don't know. When can you do that? 5.
We would need to petition the U.S. Census, so we would need to have a business case.
Which sounds like really thrilling and fun, but if we have to do it, we will.
I'm sure there's a little bit of paperwork involved.
Yeah, lots of paperwork. We've already pushed modified map C forward. I can be fine. I don't love any of them, like I said. I can be fine with modified C. That would be a yes.
Okay.
We'll survive.
Okay.
Further discussion?
So it would be staff's intention to bring this forward to you on your November 16th City Council agenda for consideration of passage by an ordinance as required by the Missouri state statutes.
All right, we will do this again then. Thank you. You look like you need something.
We'll need a motion.
Is there a motion? Oh, it's a special meeting, so we do. Motion to adjourn.
So move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.